I don't think it's a hyperbole when I say this, but last night in the NBA might have been an all-time moment. And from what we saw last night, now obviously the Cavs Magic series that has been an ugly, brutal, defensive 80s, 90s type basketball game where teams are breaking shots back and forth. I'm not talking about that game specifically. I thought the Cavs, even though they're up 2-0 right now, both those games should have been more blowouts as they can. I mean, you can clearly see, in my opinion, that Orlando can't shoot, that they're somewhat scared of the big moment, but Cleveland is as well. They're just taking advantage of more babies, if you will, in the basketball world than they are. In my opinion, Sixers Knicks, that finish to that game, which I mean the Knicks just wanted it more, and you could see that as well in game one. And I don't care about the Sixers excuse of Tyrese Maxey's sick. He was an assist away from a triple double last night. Their excuse that Joel Embiid is hurt. He's out there, he's playing well. He dominated for 3 quarters last night. Philadelphia could not just put the Knicks away because the Knicks wanted it more. But from what I saw in that Lakers Nuggets game that took place late last night on the East Coast, what an incredible finish. I mean, Jamal Murray obviously with the game winner. And by the way, Jamal Murray, who struggled throughout the first 3 quarters, it's why I always said when I made my top 10 players in the NBA playoffs last week, Jamal Murray was the number 6 person on my list. And that was not hyperbole. Now, obviously, Jimmy Butler went down for Miami, and that stinks for them. They're going to get blown out by Boston this series. But Jamal Murray has always been a playoff player. He averages 7 more points in the postseason. That is the most uptick in points from the regular to the postseason by any player in the history of the sport. And increasingly, as the NBA regular season has gotten more balanced, there's a couple reasons for that. Number one being a lot of teams rest their starters. Number two being there's a lot of European players and there's more talent coming in to sort of balance out the week. But the NBA playoffs and the NBA regular season, more so than the NFL, more so than the NHL, more so than Major League Baseball, is a completely different sport. Not only by the way the officials have called games, which I haven't seen any egregious calls that have completely changed the outcomes of games in the NBA. There have been some calls here and there, but I think they've been on both sides. NBA officiating, as we know, is the worst officiating in all four of the major pro sports. And I don't even watch the NHL. And I can tell you that NHL officiating is better than the NBA. And part of that is because the NBA game, even more so than hockey, is so fast and everything is happening. And there's a lot of iffy 50-50 calls. And if your hand got hit or if your feet are set at the exact right time for a charge block, that it's very hard to officiate in real time. But when you watch the Lakers Nuggets series, and when you watch a series, like a Oklahoma City on New Orleans or a Cavs Magic series, it's not even close. I mean, it is a different sport. And I said last week that I gave the Lakers a good chance against Denver, and the Lakers played their best 2 games they played against Denver. They played them better than all 4 games they played against them last year in the Western Conference Finals. And the reason why I gave the Lakers a chance is because I said LeBron is healthy, AD is healthy. If they get some contributions from Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, who made 7 or 8 threes last night, and a very hot hand from behind the arc, Roy Hachimura, then they could have a shot. And in game one, the Lakers played a perfect, 2 and 3/4 quarters. It was the last minute, or, the last couple minutes, I should say, of the third quarter where they're up one. Denver goes on their run, and boom, it's ball game. And then last night they played literally the perfect basketball game you could play. And all of a sudden, again, Denver in the fourth quarter, they chip away at that lead. Fourth quarter, it's winning time. Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic get it going. And boom, Denver with the game winning shot because LeBron goes in and out on a 3 pointer, which for the record, there have been so many in and out shots in these NBA playoffs. I don't know if it's nerves. I don't know what the rims are tight and they literally need to loosen up these rims with a screwdriver, but I've never seen basketballs go in and out like it has been in these NBA playoffs. But Jamal Murray comes down very calmly, no timeout by head coach Mike Malone, which was the right decision. Jamal Murray makes the shot at the buzzer, and Denver is pretty much unstoppable. I make a pretty good living at my day job right now, and I would bet if I was an addicted gambler, I would bet my entire salary on the fact that the Denver Nuggets are going to win this year's 2024 NBA championship. As I said before the playoffs, me and Colin Cowherd were seemingly the only two people in the country saying, look at this Denver team. They are the next dynasty in the NBA. And as long as Nicole Jokic and Jamal Murray are healthy, after what I've seen in the first two games of this series, and by the way, I think out of any team in the playoffs, maybe outside of Minnesota, just because of their size, I think Denver will cruise through the rest of the West. I think the Lakers are their biggest challenge because of LeBron, because of AD, who have essentially canceled out Nicole Jokic and Jamal Murray in this series. It's been Michael Porter, it's been KCP, it's been Aaron Gordon. Christian Braun had a good night last night. And by the way, Reggie Jackson, who's usually a very clutch playoff player, has not played well in these first two games. But outside of that, this Denver team, I don't know how you beat them. My only solution really is make sure Nikola Jokic does not get 10 assists. We know Jokic is going to bake in have about 20 and 10. You don't want him to have 30, 15, and 10. And so the way I see it, I think you have to do what Miami did last year in game two of the NBA Finals. And essentially let Jokic get 50, let Jokic get 60, but don't let Jamal Murray score, which the Lakers did last night, and they were up 15. And then again, Jamal Murray got out late, and it was ball game. Don't let Michael Porter get his 4 or 5 threes. Don't let KCP get hot. Don't let Christian Braun contribute off the bench. Because when all those guys are putting in production, plus Jokic, they are almost unstoppable. I can make an argument. This team is better than the Kevin Durant like Golden State Warriors because that team was more top heavy. Obviously, Durant, Clay, Steph, Draymond, they didn't have much of a bench. This team's got a real bench. They got depth and they got scores everywhere and they got length. And it's like, again, as I said, Mike Malone calls timeout and tells his team, hey, team, let's play defense for 5 minutes. They do so, they shut you down, and Denver goes on their run, and it's ball game. And again, I think the Lakers are a very good team. I think they're in the wrong matchup at the wrong time, and for them, it'd probably be better that they get them in the first round in the Western Conference Finals because you're just delaying the inevitable. Let me quickly go through my other thoughts. Let's start with the Knicks and Sixers, who, as I said, game one and game two, they both were close. I thought Philadelphia at least needed a split, especially with the way last night's game came out, because Philadelphia had the Knicks. But the Knicks, with Jalen Brunson even struggling, Josh Hart made some big shots, DiVincenzo made some big shots, Harvenstein got some big rebounds. And I like Nick Nurse a lot as a coach. And I don't really love Thibodeau. I think he rides his players too hard, especially in the regular season. But this Knicks team is tough, and they just want it more than the Sixers. Again, I don't care about Joel Embiid's excuse of him being hurt. He's always hurt. Joel Embiid needs to start being dominant the way he is in the Mickey Mouse regular season when half the teams are facing are tanking, half the other teams are resting starters, and Joel Embiid, it seems like, can't even make it through half a season. Tyrese Maxey's a very nice player. When he's with Joel Embiid, he's deadly. When he's not with Joel Embiid, the Sixers can barely score the basketball. It's why you can make the argument that even though he did not qualify for the 65 game NBA MVP that has now been instituted, Joel Embiid is the real MVP of the NBA because the Sixers are a completely different team with him off the court than him on the court. Again, the Knicks, to me, it's a very even series, especially when Jalen Brunson does not have his best game, like he did not last night. But they just wanted it more. And now they go back to Philly 2-0, and Philly has to win both of these games in the Wells Fargo Center because they get 2 days off in between both game three Thursday, game four Sunday. If they don't, the Sixers will be going on with an early exit and a lot of questions moving forward. Another one being, do we finally rip the band-aid off Joel Embiid? Because while I defended Joel Embiid for years and I defended them and Ben Simmons for years, clearly the Ben Simmons experiment has not worked, and ever since he has left, I think Tyrese Maxey's a decent second star. They need to upgrade Tobias Harris as that third player. But ever since Kawhi Leonard made that crazy bing, bing, bing shot in game 7 of 2019 Raptors Sixers, I could argue the Sixers have never recovered. Speaking of the Clippers, they dominated Dallas in game one. Now, I didn't suspect that. I did pick the Clippers to win the series in 7 because I assumed that Kawhi Leonard would play at least 5 of the 7 games. It does sound like he's going to play game 2 tonight. And I had said, I don't care again what Dallas did at the end of the regular season. I don't care that they got hot and that Luka and Kyrie were really playing well together. If you look hard at that schedule, they were playing, the Spurs and Memphis and Portland, the bottom of a very difficult West to sort of lift them up in the standings. And I thought James Harden played actually one of his best playoff games ever. He was really out from three. I thought Russell Westbrook did a good job leading the bench. I've been very critical of Russell Westbrook in the past. I think he plays too fast, even for the NBA, playing at 100 miles per hour, never slows down, but he did a really good job at leading that Clipper unit. I thought Zubac did a good job dominating inside, which was my one concern for Dallas because they don't get a lot of scoring from their bigs. It really is the Luka Kyrie show. And I have said, I don't think you can win championships where your two best players are guards. I think, if your first and fourth are guards, you can win. Steph and Clay are the exception because they are the two greatest shooters of all time. And they only, they won the 2 championships together. Obviously, Kevin Durant being the equalizer for the other two against LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love, in that great rivalry. Which you can make an argument now, even though the Lakers have lost 9 straight to Denver, that could be the next great rivalry in the NBA, along with what it was in Cavs Golden State 4 years ago if LeBron does end up staying in LA. Uh, but I just thought, the Clippers are the better team. Kawhi Leonard will get back. He will probably take Luka Doncic for some moments in the series. You don't expect Dallas to shoot as bad as they did. If Dallas can get out of here, 1-1, they should feel good. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers were to steal one in Dallas as well. I think either way, that series goes back 2-2 and is going 6 or 7 games. The other game too last night, I alluded to it earlier, Cleveland or Orlando. Obviously, my hometown Cleveland Cavaliers. This has been a very ugly series. Both teams have not shot the ball well. The difference in game 2 was the Cavs have Donovan Mitchell, Orlando does not. Orlando is playing like Cleveland did last year against the Knicks, very scared, unable to shoot, not ready for the physicality, which I thought last night in game 2 specifically a lot of foul calls were made. You had 4, 5, 6 players with 4 or 5 fouls. I thought there were some ticky tack calls on both sides that you usually would not see in the postseason. And I thought that was evident after obviously a very physical game one. Jared Allen is inside dominating the boards. Evan Mobley had a very good second half last night. Did not think he had a great game overall. Darius Garland came on late to help sort of seal the deal. But Orlando is pesky, and Orlando will never give up. And Cleveland started turning the ball over in the fourth quarter. And again, games that the Cavs should have got 110 points, and the game shouldn't even have been close. I think Orlando says to themselves, hey, if our role players play better at home, which they have not shot well at all, which I think part of that is the Cavs defense. Isaac Okoro, Karis LeVert off the bench last night were huge. But every time the Cavs started to build that 15, 20 point lead and start pulling away, Orlando would fight back. And so for the Cavs, if they take one of two here in Orlando, they can end it in 5 in Cleveland. But if Orlando takes both games in Orlando, all of a sudden this is a different series. And I think the longer this series goes, Orlando will have more confidence. For Minnesota and Phoenix, a lot of people liked Phoenix in the series. Minnesota kicked their ass in game one after Phoenix went 3-0 against them in the regular season. To me, this reminds me, I don't know if you remember the 2013 with LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh's Heat against the Kevin Durant, Paul Pierce, Brooklyn Nets, when the Nets had beat Miami throughout the regular season and Miami tortured them in the postseason. This reminds me of that. Phoenix does not have any size outside of Nikola Jokic. They are a jump shooting team. And I had said last year that Bradley Beal and Devin Booker are the same player. Both of them are not true point guards. I think Beal is the more gifted, passer of the two, but they want to make Devin Booker the point guard. I don't think that necessarily works. And I think Minnesota can use Gobert and Towns inside and dominate the boards. And if Anthony Edwards is a good game at home, like I expect him to do, I think Minnesota is the better team and Minnesota will win the series. Again, not surprising to me. I think there is a flaw there in Phoenix's construction. And Minnesota is a little bit of a different of a team because even though they are led by their young star Anthony Edwards, who has gotten some postseason experience and is on a short list of guys who have scored at least, I believe, 30 points in their first six NBA playoff home games. He's on the list with the likes of LeBron and Michael Jordan, which Anthony Edwards' game has been compared to Michael Jordan. I think Minnesota's a very good team, but again, I don't think they match up with Denver. And then Oklahoma City and New Orleans, especially New Orleans without Zion. They have a Jonas Valanciunas, they have a CJ McCollum, who are, productive at this point in their careers, but they're certainly not in their prime. They need a big game from Brandon Ingram, which they did not necessarily get in game one. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren are the difference of the two best players in the series, which is why I think Oklahoma City ultimately wins the series. But you could see that youth and experience. And to me, it's only going to grow as the postseason gets there. But I think a matchup with the Clippers and Dallas could be detrimental to Oklahoma City, the number one seed in the West. I just think they're obviously the youngest number one seed in NBA history. If they make the Western Conference Finals, it will be an achievement. They just did not look ready for the moment, and neither did New Orleans on Sunday night. And then in the other, two games in the East, very surprised in Milwaukee coming out and thrashing Indiana. My partner over at Championship Rings, Josh Unger, which we will debate with tonight, he has Indiana going to the Eastern Conference Finals. He really likes the team of Tyrese Haliburton, Pascal Siakam, obviously Miles Turner. Tyrese Haliburton has not played well since the All-Star break. To me, he is a star. He's coming of age, but he's not there yet. Milwaukee looks very different without Giannis on the court. It's ironic their last two wins in the playoffs have come without Giannis on the court. I don't know if it's just more free, they can play well, there was dominant, but Damian Lillard really took charge, and this could be Damian Lillard's moment. We saw him in Portland, either he'd win a first round series and go home, or the one year they got to the Western Conference Finals, did not win a game against Golden State. Without Giannis here and a different team in Milwaukee, can Damian Lillard take that mantle and become, that old guy here? Because if LeBron goes down, if Kevin Durant goes down, let's say Dallas does come back and beat the Clippers in round one of the West, if Joel Embiid and the Sixers go out, you got Jalen Brunson, you got Anthony Edwards, and you really, have Donovan Mitchell a little bit. You got Jason Tatum. You obviously have Jokic and Murray, Shea and Shed. I mean, that's a lot of young talent there. And Giannis and Damian Lillard would probably be out of that group the oldest by far in the postseason in terms of experience. So that's interesting. Again, I don't think Indiana, I don't think the Lights are ready for the Pacers. I think they're too bright for them. And then obviously without Jimmy Butler, I think Boston disposes of Miami. Maybe Eric Spoelstra and that well-coached team could get one game, at the former American Airlines Arena, whatever it's called now. But I think in the end, this will be the easiest series in the first round. I think Boston will dispose of Miami, and I think they caught a little break there with Jimmy Butler obviously injuring his ACL in the playing game. And then again, I think whoever wins that Orlando Cleveland series, which will probably be Cleveland. Again, I have not been impressed by the Cavs the first two games. I think if they played a Knicks or they played a Sixers, they would have lost both those games. So I would have Boston taking Cleveland, maybe six. The Cavs could push it, but probably five in my opinion. And I think that would set up potentially a Celtics Knicks. The way I see it right now, once Milwaukee, gets healthy and starts playing well, they could definitely beat the Knicks. But I think the Celtics' first real challenge will probably be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I still think it's very likely again Denver Celtics NBA Finals. I don't really care who makes it out of the East. I will tell you right now that again, knocking on wood, if Jamal Murray or Nikola Jokic don't get hurt, the Denver Nuggets are going to repeat as NBA champions.
Like that clip from the Brains World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brains World podcast right here on YouTube.